Have you ever wondered what it takes to get to 1 million subscribers? Today we talk with Viral Sensation JP Sears about just that. JP went from doing a trickle for views in his first year to literally going viral and eventually just hitting 1 million subscribers. He's going to share his story, the one change he made to break out, and his advice for you to do it too. Get ready for tips and strategies that could change your channel and life. All that and more here on the VI Show coming up.
This video is brought to you by vidIQ, the #1 Chrome extension for YouTubers looking for on-point data analysis, research resources, and enhanced video creator tools. Start getting more views in less time today by signing up for free at vidiq.com/influence. That's vidiq.com/influence.
That's right. Welcome to Video Influencers. My name is Benji Travis, and we're helping build your influence, income, and impact with online videos. You know, Sean Cannell and I, we started this channel to help you crush it on YouTube, and we're the co-authors of YouTube Secrets. That's right, helping you crush on this platform with your videos, get more influence, get more views, all that good stuff, including get more subscribers, which leads to my next guest, JP Sears. As you saw, JP, amazing, right? You're doing some awesome things for the world, creating some laughter. So thank you so much for being on the show today.
Oh, you're welcome, Benji. And because you're humble, I'm going to hijack the show for just a second. And I want to share with all you beautiful people who are fortunate enough to be connected here to Video Influencers. Benji has been incredibly instrumental in my YouTube growth. I mean, Benji, you shared, I've recently across the 1 million subscriber mark. I met Benji when I had 800 subscribers. This is back about six or so years ago. And I'm an idiot. I have my degree in idiotology. Yet one thing I did do was listen to Benji. And as I met other YouTube mentors along the way, I not only listened, but I did what they said. And continue that multiplied by consistency and time allowed me to reach the 1 million subscriber mark, which was a goal. I thought that's a goal, but I'm never going to achieve it. So as you're watching the Video Influencer content, anytime you see Benji or Sean, just know there is gold in what they say. And I'd ask you to do two things. One, listen. 2, execute. So Benji, for all that you've given me along the way, I mean, thank you. It's not enough, but thank you, brother.
Well, it's not every day that on the show other people talk me up. So thank you for that. And gets me even more excited because, you know, the whole point of this show is not for me or Sean to talk about what we know, even though we do share everything that we feel would be of value, is to pick the brain of the influencers who are crushing it on YouTube and on just online video, generally speaking. So let's just start with your story. You know, what's interesting is, yes, I met you very early on, so I've seen the whole evolution, but tell us why you got started and how you got started and where you're at today, because I think there's just so many takeaways from that story.
Sure. So there's been an evolution. How I got started is I wanted to help people. And I had been doing life coaching for about 13 years before I got started. So I thought, well, I'm going to do life advice videos, you know, how to heal broken relationships, how to work through depression, like really meaningful stuff. Nothing funny about it, like probably really good life advice, yet really boring videos. And during that initial phase of how I was doing videos, I was not allowing my humor to come out. Now, we all have a sense of humor. It's one of the senses. Like you have a sense of smell, sense of taste. You also have a sense of humor. And mine was always very strong, yet I told myself it would be a bad idea to let my humor out publicly in my videos. And there's laughing my very first video. That's hilarious. Yeah, like the humor will discredit my advice I'm giving people. So the worst part of that story is I believed that story. I was telling myself, But as I kept going along, kept making videos and reaching some people, sometimes getting several hundred views on a video after several months, which I was so proud of, I started to let my sense of humor come out and be seen on videos. And that and internally what that meant for me is I was starting to become more true to myself, not restricting like, this part of me can't be on video, it will make the audience not like me. But what I found is, okay, let my humor out as well. That means I'm showing myself more to the audience, which feels scarier. There's more room for rejection. Yet what I discovered is the right audience that resonates with you, you give them the chance to find you, the more of you, your authentic self, you present to them. So that's what I did. And then, along the way, now doing comedy videos for the past 5 years, which I learned a couple things. First off, comedy is a language that connects people. People want to pay attention to things when they're funny. When things are just informative but not funny, it's going to be a lot less people that pay attention to them. So I learned there's a currency of comedy. People will connect with that. And here in a little bit, we want to share a little bit about how you can integrate some humor into your videos, not to change you into making comedy videos if that's not your thing, but to even add 5 to 10% more humor into your videos to make you more magnetic for people, because people want to watch things when they're funny, or at least a little bit funny. So then along the way, I started to get really unapologetic. Like, yes, I'm making comedy videos, yet here's the sincere message in the comedy videos. So I was integrating both the humor part of me and the sincere part of me to be more of a whole person on camera. And therefore, the more I was allowing myself to be whole and be funny and speak my mind, my truths, my messages, the more I saw the audience growth accelerate upward, which was beautiful. So for me, I tell you about my story, but for me, the take-home message there is, I think the more any video creator can be authentic and true to themselves on camera, you are exposing the surface area of your real self, not a facade, but your real self to other people. We live in 2020. People don't want to connect with a facade. This isn't 1980 anymore, where we want to connect with a newscaster talking in an artificial tone of voice. No, we live in a new age now. People want real people. And I think this applies to any video creator. Your growth will accelerate the more you can work on being true to yourself on the camera. It's awesome. It's like a personal evolution that the camera creates for us. It's like, oh, here's the hero's journey given to us by the goodness of the camera.
So many influencers as well as experts always say, be more authentic. And so the real question is, how do you be more authentic? So if you're watching right now, that is what we're talking about. That's what you can learn from JP, because when you first got started, JP, and we showed some of those old style videos, I mean, they were sometimes getting less than 100 views, maybe a few hundred views on a good one. But now you're getting literally tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, sometimes millions of views. You just recently had a viral hit that I don't even know where it's at, but total, you've gotten over 120 million views. So what we're talking about today is working not only for JP, but I believe for everybody else out there. So we're going to be talking about how to be more humorous, but what would be your first suggestions for people out there who maybe are stuck? They're in a rut and they know that they're not letting them their authentic selves out, or there's a part of them like you had a lot of knowledge on a particular profession or skill set or expertise, and obviously you want to share that with the world, but for whatever reason you were hiding the humorous part of your personality. When you combine the two, magic. And I remember it was just like day and night, that difference. You just popped out of that garbage can, right? And so we showed that reel a little bit earlier, and you were funny. Now, you had always been funny. So what would be your suggestions or advice for people who are hiding a part of themselves because of fear, and how do they let that out and get over that fear?
Yeah, I'll give you my opinion on that, and I'd rather give you not what's easy, but what will work. So for me, what works with getting past the fear of being authentic and restricting ourselves, we have to be willing to feel the emotion of fear. It's not sexy. Nobody gives you social media points for feeling your fear. Yet what we do get is when we feel the fear because we're about to do something we've never done, or we're not good at, or like we're afraid of rejection. Like, yes, if you're real, people could reject you. But when you're about to do that and you feel the fear, but you do the thing anyway, a couple things happen. One, as you're doing the thing initially, the fear will intensify. The other thing is you make progress. It's kind of like if we all have like an inner Superman, we're gradually ripping our shirt off to expose the superpower, which is our authentic self. So for me, the true warrior is one who has the courage to feel afraid, but take action anyway. The coward, and we all have a choice. We're either going to be a warrior or a coward in the moment. And I don't mean that in a shaming way. Like I chicken out of so many things still. But when we're the coward, it's like we bump up into a fear and then we go in the opposite direction. We go away from what we're afraid of. But, Benji, I can say every great blessing in my life has come when I was scared and I did the thing anyway. And I'll give you a couple examples. Making my first video, making my first comedy video, doing stand-up comedy for the first time. Like, oh my God, I thought I was definitely going to die. Turned out I didn't. When I met my wife, telling her how I felt about her, so scary. My wife and I today we announced we're pregnant. I felt so called. We feel so called to start a family, yet there was a fear to go through to become a father. Yet those great blessings I wouldn't have if I wasn't willing to encounter the fear, feel the fear, and do the thing anyway. So, one footnote: if you're at all like me, you're a delusional person who will play tricks on yourself. You jump on here and you watch Benji give such a smooth intro, so good on camera, or you watch some of your other favorite YouTubers and you're like, man, they have a big audience and look how great they are. We can trick ourselves and pretend that person doesn't have fear and they never had to encounter the dark, scary forest of letting their authentic self out. I guarantee you they have. And maybe they're not fearful on camera. Maybe they're not afraid to unapologetically be themselves now. But if they're not, they earned it because they went through the scary time of being afraid but doing the thing anyway.
Absolutely.
I wish there was an easy shortcut. Like, you just buy this crystal, do a little yoga, and you'll be able to be shining your authentic self without ever feeling afraid. Life doesn't work that way. Yeah. We got to call on the fierce warrior.
And crystals are really popular right now too. So I know exactly what you mean. Don't get me wrong. Crystals could be helping people. I don't personally find any value in it, but I think the one thing I definitely agree on is the fear and feeling the fear. Even today, even every time I go live, I still feel that fear. The 3 minutes before our team hits live, I'm like, oh my Lord, what am I doing here? Like, I still feel that before I get onto stage, right? If I wasn't drinking tea, I just recently switched to white green tea. And if I didn't switch to that, I'd be sweating. Like, I'd be like seriously profusely sweating. So the fear is real. And the one thing I want to add to what you just said is some of my biggest accomplishments and some of my biggest discoveries of myself happened on the other side of fear, like the
Yeah.
biggest fears and the most challenging fears. So today's question of the day is, what fear have you been avoiding, or what is something you're fearful of that you need to just conquer to get you to the next step to tap into your full potential? Leave it in the comments below. We always love hearing from the community and would love to reply to you guys. And remember, we're going to be doing a Q&A near the end. Now, speaking of fear and our next topic of comedy, you know, one of the ways that I kind of ease the tension, not just for myself, but the audience when I'm speaking, is using comedy, right? When I get that laugh at the beginning of my talk, and I always try not to force it, but it's so important to make it happen somehow, even if it's self-deprecating, even if I'm just making fun of myself. And one of my team members always makes fun of me that I almost try to do stand-up comedy for like the first 5 minutes. And even if I just crash and fall, usually within that, there's a laugh or two, and it helps me like get back into my comfort zone. So I think comedy is something definitely everybody can relate to in terms of is a good thing. But what would be your advice? What would be some key strategies to facilitate more humor, whether in your life, whether in your content? Obviously, we're talking about YouTubers and creators, or even if you're giving a presentation. What's the science behind it, JP?
Yeah. So I want to share a formula in a second, because it would be useless for me to say, hey, add a little more funny into your videos. It'll make people remember you more. You'll be more memorable, and they'll be more in an open state, receptive state while they're watching you. It would be useless for me to tell you that. But what would be hopefully more useful is sharing with you how to be a little bit more funny. So I want to share with you what I call the currency of comedy formula. But first, before I do that, you know, I think it's potent to understand why we would want to be injecting a little bit of humor. Now, first off, for context, I'm not here to advocate you should make comedy videos. No, like unless comedy videos, comedian is your thing. But you know, whether you have a fishing channel or a sewing channel or a vlog channel, whatever you do, adding a little bit of comedy is what we're talking about. Not to make a comedy video, but to make your existing videos a little bit more funny. And here's an analogy. It's like if you go out to a nice restaurant, and the chef knows what they're doing. They know how to use a little bit of spice to make the dish really come alive. That's just a little bit of spice. But if that chef gave you a bowl full of cayenne pepper, you'd say like, okay, this is overboard. So that's what we're doing with comedy here. We don't want to go overboard. Like if you have a funeral parlor channel, like probably like very little comedy would serve you. And you know your audience, some people would say like, okay, 3% comedy, 10%, 5%. So just like cayenne spice, a little can go a long way. And then before we get to the formula, I just want to ask you beautiful viewers this question. When you were a kid, what was your favorite comedy movie? And if you could comment in, I'd love to hear it. You know, what was your favorite comedy movie when you were a kid? Whether it's like, you know, for me, like I love the Ace Ventura movies, Dumb and Dumber, and Adam Sandler movies.
Sandlot was my comedy movie. I mean, it's more than comedy, but there's just some really funny jokes that just resonate with my childhood. So that was mine. I want to hear from everybody else too. I'm reading all the comments. By the way, I want to give a shout out to Goose, one of our members, the Swedish car guy, Sizzling Home Flavors. But yeah, sorry to cut you off. I just had to give a shout out to The Sandlot.
Yeah. Sandlot is streaming now on Netflix, maybe. So But I see, like, with the comments, like, yeah, everybody's like, yeah, here's my favorite movie. This is great. Next question. When you were a kid, what was your favorite textbook and who was the author? A little bit harder to answer, isn't it? And what I find is about 95% of people don't have a clue what even the name of one textbook they read throughout all their years of school, let alone what was the author. But, like, oh, Happy Gilmore with Adam Sandler. What's the difference? Entertainment versus informing. There's way more information in a textbook compared to a comedy movie. But the comedy movie is memorable. It's stuck in you. You felt connected to it because it was entertaining. It was emotional. The textbook was informational. So for me, the lesson is, I'm guessing like everybody here, whatever you do on your channel, you've got great information, but we realize if you don't remember what textbooks you read when you were a kid, that means you will be incredibly forgettable if you're just informational. But if you can add a little bit of the cayenne spice of comedy to your information, now you've got some of the magic, some of the emotional connectivity that makes people feel great while they're watching you. And then they blame you for that, which means they like you more, which means they subscribe to you more, which means they share your videos more. First off, does that make a little bit of sense?
Absolutely, totally. I love how you painted a picture with the movie versus the textbook, and how simple it really is. And also, I love the whole spice in the kitchen thing, because it's so true. Like, you got to know how much to give and make it appropriate for your type of content.
100%. I'm a comedian, so I'm biased. Yet even I would say a lot of comedy doesn't serve everybody well. But y'all know your audiences well, so I know, like, yeah, sometimes like 95% comedy works pretty well for a comedian, but not everybody. So we want to find, like, what is the right percentage for me. We probably know that in our gut. So with that said, the currency of comedy formula. And if you know how to read or write, I would invite you to write this down. And if you're illiterate, then awesome. Everybody's included here. My dad always told me there's three kinds of people in this world: those who know how to do math and those who don't. Benji, 0 to 10, how terrible was that joke?
That was a great joke. I was actually waiting. I was waiting for the third one, and I just realized it. And obviously, there was only one laugh in the room because I'm the only one connected to the microphone. But I'm sure that was a good joke, I thought.
Thank you for being a good friend and laughing at the joke. So the currency of comedy formula I want to share with you so that we can take the mystery out of being funny. We all have a sense of humor. You just think of the last time you made someone laugh. Like, was it today? Was it yesterday? Was it a week ago? Even if it was just a chuckle, I'd ask everybody, like, just what was the most recent memory you can think of? We all have that. You're probably connecting with it right now. And that proves, like, cool, you've got a sense of humor. It's there in you. You're not a sociopath void of it. You've got a sense of humor. Now we want to translate how to use that humor in a formula so we don't have to sit in the field of ambiguity, just being told, like, be a little more funny. But let's talk about how to be a little bit more funny using your authentic humor in your authentic content. So here's the formula I'd invite you to write down, what I call the currency of comedy formula. A comedic principle plus a comedic tool plus your idea equals comedic content. Now, hit that one more time. Super simple. A comedic principle plus a comedic tool plus an idea of yours equals comedic content. So with that said, that's the art and the science of it. The science is the comedic principle, the comedic tool. The art is, what's your idea? But all you do is really plug your idea into the formula, and you have a much better shot of it being comedically funny. A way easier path to creating the funny rather than just sitting under an oak tree praying for the funny to find you. So with that said, Benji, would it be cool if I shared first start with a couple comedic principles and maybe get
Definitely.
to a comedic tool or two?
Yeah, and
Just,
just to clarify, the comedic idea, would it be correct to say that this is why it's important for you to bring your unique self into that, because also your authentic self, so it's much more, I'd say, natural. I mean, part of comedy too, I think, is it has to kind of flow out. It can't be forced, right?
yeah,
And the way you let things flow out is when you're yourself, right? You're not like
yeah.
faking it. And so I just wanted to clarify that, because I really do agree with it. But definitely keep going. I'm loving it. And by the way, talking about comedic things, there's a lawnmower in the back of my studio, so we just dialed in these microphones that literally pick up every noise in the neighborhood. So I do apologize. We're gonna go ahead and mute my microphone, and I'll give you the platform again.
And I love that, Benji, for my live stream comedy show last night, we were filming it with a shotgun
Yeah,
mic,
yeah.
and I have people who mow my lawn. They showed up. I think it was 3/4 of the way through the show.
Why does that always happen?
It's the beauty of live. Anything can happen. It,
Yeah.
it gets sloppy. It's cool. So I'd like to share with you, wonderful people, two comedic principles. Unto themselves, they're not funny, but when the principles are combined with the comedic tool and an idea, then it creates something funny. Any one of these elements itself is not funny, but combined, that's the beauty. We find something funny through this formula. So, two comedic tools or principles to start with. I'm sorry. The truth principle and the pain principle. So, expanding on that for a moment, the truth principle, all good comedy, and really even lousy comedy, as long as it's comedy, it's based in truth. So the to get in touch with, okay, what's true? You kind of like, your audience, what's true for them, who are they, what do they want, what do you do, what's your subject matter, what's good advice in it, what's bad advice in it. So you've got plenty of truth material around you. Pretty simple, pretty boring unto itself. It'll make a little bit more sense in a second, but the truth principle. So real quick, just as a thought exercise, I'd invite you to think of, generally speaking, what would be 3 truths about your audience? Your subject matter. What are 3 truths about your audience? And even to make it easier for you with those 3 truths, you can think about, like, what's their problem? What do they want? And who are they? Are they middle-aged men? Are they, middle-aged men and women? Are they younger, older? But what's their problem? What's their pain? What do they want? And who are they? You've got 3 truths. There's so much comedic material there once it's inserted in the formula. So moving along, that's the truth principle. And then the pain principle. Here's how it gets good. We already started touching on it, but the pain principle, you know how comedy is an emotional experience? So that means we've got to evoke emotions. And one of the most effective ways to evoke emotions for comedic expression is getting in touch with people's pain. I'm not talking about get in touch with their trauma, like have them go into PTSD. No, not at all. But their pain. So I already asked you with their truths, like what's one of their problems? So that's already telling you about the pain principle. Now, the pain, like what's their pain? What's your pain that you've encountered? Like if you're being self-deprecating, what are pains that you could encounter? Insecurities. Like I have red hair and I make red hair jokes all the time. That comes from pain. And when we are operating with either truth or the pain principle, or sometimes both at the same time, that makes us very relatable, very connectable. And I want to give a quick example of the pain principle, how I use that in a comedy video. So, you beautiful people out there watching, I think it might have been 4 or 5 months ago, I put out a video called Man Scripts. Now, if you watched it, thank you for watching. If you haven't watched it, you can check it out after this broadcast if you want to see the principle in action. Yet, just to share with you, if you haven't seen it, the Man Scripts, I heavily used the pain principle in that. So if you're a man in a heterosexual relationship, and by the way, am I stereotyping? Yes, but I had to in order to connect to a truth that many men can relate to. And I did that with the pain principle. So the pain principle, guys out there, if you've ever had the experience of there's an argument with your lady, and no matter what you say, it just makes the argument worse. She gets angry at you. You can't say the right thing. Even when you're being really logical, thoughtful, you're not angry. You're just trying to help. You're saying the right things. But there's the Man Scripts video. But she just gets angrier at you. So in other words, as all guys, and no matter what your gender, you've had this experience in a relationship. That's a pain. That's a pain that we all have inside. And in order to release that emotional expression, I portrayed that on the video. And how I portrayed it is, I'm on the video advocating men. When your woman says this common statement, like, what do you want to watch tonight? Instead of expressing what you actually want to watch, suppress your normal thought, pull out your manuscript, and read to her what she wants to hear. Of course I want to watch The Bachelor tonight, honey. Seeing women objectify themselves as they're competing for a man's affection sounds like a delight. So that was all based on pain. And of course, it was also true because that's pain I've experienced before. So to make this hit home for everybody, I want to ask you, what are 3 pains that both you and your audience can relate to within the ballpark of your creative genre?
For sure. I want to actually bring up, I told you that stand-up comedy moment during one of my presentations. I did exactly just this. I thought about the audience and how I could relate to them. Like, where are they? What do they do? So in that case, we were in Dallas and we had all just traveled to Dallas on a plane, right? I had just personally came on a red eye. Second thing, if you travel there on a plane, you know about this pain. Say you're trying to take a nap, especially on a red eye. And for whatever reason, on red eye flights, there's those 2 passengers that decide to have the loudest conversation of life during the red eye flight, right? So I brought that up. And so that wasn't like a planned thing. It wasn't in my script. I was just relating to them. I think the reason this is so important for everybody to hear, it not only will make you more humorous or more funny, it'll also help you to connect with your audience more. And when you can connect, and that's the genius of so many of your videos, you've been able to connect with people where they're at, even if you're not even that, right? Like your meat eater video, which has gone viral. I mean, like there's almost on both sides, right? Both vegans and even meat eaters, I think, watch that and laugh because there's pains in that. So I think that's really important for everybody to understand. And thank you for breaking it all down like a science. What else do you want to add here? Sorry, I just had to add my 2 cents because I'm getting all kinds of light bulbs going on in my brain as you're talking.
And thank you, Benji. And in a second, I want to jump to a comedic tool or two. We just covered two of the most powerful comedic principles: pain and truth. Yet I noticed, and I wasn't even thinking about this. I wasn't trying to be polite and just support you. But when you talked about the two people having a deep dive, loud life conversation on a red eye flight, I laughed. And you say, well, why did you laugh, JP? What was funny about that? It was funny because it was true and painful. I've been there. So, Benji, like what you just with that short anecdote,
Yeah.
that's good cayenne spice
Thank
of
you.
comedy. And I think that's a beautiful example. Next, when we go to comedic tools, I want to give you, let's see, there's so many. I want to be as practical as possible. So I want to give you the contrast formula and the pattern interrupt tool. They're both quick and easy, yeah, freaking potent. So the contrast formula as a comedic tool. And I'm kind of reverse engineering some of the videos that have gone viral. I'm like, why was that funny? Oh, the contrast formula. So the contrast formula is essentially giving people the exact wrong advice. It is so exaggerated. They know you're doing it. And it's funny because it's also relating to pain, because like they want a certain result, but you're taking them in the opposite direction. And this could be a 10-second little anecdote. You jump into the beginning of a video with a contrast formula. And if I was working with video influencers, what I might say is, hey, have you ever wondered how to shrink your audience and repel people from watching your videos? Well, I'm going to share with you 3 easy steps you can do. Make sure you're always backlit when you're filming your video, as well as make sure your audio is crackly so that people can barely hear you and they're a little bit annoyed while they're watching you. And the other thing is, don't have a good idea of what you're going to say on camera until you're on camera, and just figure it out as you go, as you ramble. Now, it's the contrast formula. It's not 3 degrees away from good advice. It's 180 degrees away from good advice. And that is very easy, very potent comedy. Now, again, the comedic tool of the contrast formula by itself doesn't work. Because you could say like, oh, like if you want to go to Mars, just sail towards the sun and you'll eventually find it. But Mars is in the opposite direction. No, like that's not truthful or painful for your audience unless they're astronauts. So it needs to be within the truth and pain, which basically means when you know your audience and what they want and what their pain points are.
You have to be able to relate to them, right? 100%. Like connect with them. Yeah. And I love that you brought that up about the whole Mars joke, and even your voice, by the way, right? Because I kind of understand that character in your comedy. It's it might seem funny to you, but it's not going to be funny to the people and needs to be funny too, in the sense, like if you're actually trying to make them laugh, right? And this is why this is a principle of YouTube content, is know your audience, know who you're talking to. And I think even you talking about understanding people's pain points while also understanding their perspective, so that contrast can actually work. I mean, it's genius stuff. I mean, I hope you have like some kind of a ebook on this, or an audiobook, because I'm not only taking notes, I'm going to be applying all this stuff.
I love that. And I'm developing an e-course around it. I'm not sure when it's coming out, but I want to help people with this a lot. And, the contrast formula, one other thing I want to say on this tool, because it's so potent and so easy to use, for a non-comedian to use this, a couple great practical video strategies for it is you can use it as a 10-second hook in the beginning of your video. You hit people with the worst advice they've ever heard in a relatable way, you've got their attention. And then, you cut and like, here's the reel. You're like, we know that's, we know that's the wrong way to do it. So let me help you with some real advice on today's video. And another way to do it is interject scenes of the contrast formula, terrible advice throughout the video to create a rhythm of drip feeding comedy in there. And those are just things I've done, but any of that feels appealing to you, I'd invite you to take it. Then the last one, the pattern interrupt tool. A laugh comes when you present the unexpected to a person. And essentially the punchline of a joke is you're training someone to expect something over here, but then you deliver something over here. And that gap, that's tension. And the emotional release to reconcile the tension is laughter. So pattern interrupts can be a potent way of creating a small comedic yet potent comedic effect in ways that I think are practical for any video creator to use pattern interrupts. Is the hook of a video, the first 5 or 10 seconds, present the unexpected. And, the contrast formula itself is a pattern interrupt. If you're doing a talk to the camera video, let's say you're going for 5 minutes, if every minute and a half you've got like a cutaway scene of you in black and white arguing with what was just said, or raising an objection that the audience might be thinking, that's a great way to create the pattern interrupt. And to make it practical, what I would invite you to consider is, what would 3 objections be? Common objections your audience might have. We all have objections. It's human nature. But we know to be an effective content creator, an effective business person, we need to get past people's objections. And using their objections as your pattern interrupt means you're not only getting a comedic effect, but you're also softening their objection at the same time. Now, that's whether you're making them an offer like, hey, and I've got this ebook or this course, or even subscribe to my channel. Or your offer is the content that you're creating. If you want to better their life, you help them better their life by receiving your content, by softening their objections. So, to the degree you know your audience, what would 3 common objections be that they might have to your offers, your content? Might be, that's too expensive. Why should I trust you? Or, no, I've already tried everything. And real quick, Benji, before I rattle on all day, I want to share a quick way. Remembering, I forgot I did this until now, but it's a pattern interrupt I've used to take away people's objections. So let me ask you this. How delighted do you think the average person is when they get the 497th ding on their phone that day?
Oh, not at all. I mean,
yeah, it's like we have these notifications. They start off for our convenience, but we realize each time we hear the damn ding, it's just an inconvenience that makes us want to smash our phone. Yet, we know as content creators, the more we can get people to not only subscribe, but turn on their notifications for our videos, the better off we are. And hopefully we can serve them better for it. So a way I use the pattern interrupt is at the end of some of my videos, video completes, and I'll come back on the screen like, hey, thank you for watching. Be sure to subscribe to my channel. And if you want to feel annoyed each time I post a new video, then be sure to turn on your notifications. So nobody expects that to be said. So it's a pattern interrupt. And annoyed because of a notification, I kind of took that objection away with a little bit of humor.
Yeah, and I agree. And I was kind of expecting that you were going to bring that up when you're asking about the notification because I've watched so much of your content. But I think that even if people didn't actually ring the bell, this is the power of comedy. You got their attention for another second longer. During the time when most people would just opt out to the next video, maybe go to your channel, your playlist, they maybe got another laugh. And even if they don't ring that bell, that is value. And so this is why, thank you, by the way, for sharing all this. I feel like I'm getting the guidebook to stand-up comedians right now, because sometimes when I hear somebody that just bombs on a joke, I was like, why did that joke bomb so much? Even like a really a good example, going back to relating to your audience. If you don't relate to your audience or know who you're talking to, that could be the difference between a rant and comedy gold, right? You know, sometimes like people will rant and it's just like in one ear, out the other ear, and you're like kind of waiting for them to be done. Versus if they rant on the right thing that connects with you or your pain point, you will just be rolling laughing. And that's why I think humor is so important, because it can 10x anything. And so what's so ironic about this whole conversation, and I hope that everyone gets this one lesson out of this. If you're not going to be more funny, later today, maybe you can replay this and listen to some of these strategies. But how ironic that I remember when I met you, I didn't even think you were necessarily funny when I was talking to you in person, because you really acted like the guy in those videos. Maybe you were putting that on. And it was a good friend of ours, Daniel, who brought that out of you. And now you're teaching other people how to be funny on top of doing stand-up comedy. Who would have ever thought, right? And in fact, I know this is one of your favorite characters. Ultra Spiritual JP, right, was one of your breakout characters. I mean, when you see this, it's almost like an alter ego, like a whole different human of you. I think there's parts of you that's in it. And if you guys you understand JP, this has been one of his viral characters, and that being the meat eater one. And anyways, I want to just bring all this up and let you wrap up the comedy and everything. But isn't that crazy? And I think that's what I hope other people can be exposed to, that literally one different strategy can change everything. Go from doing a few hundred views to hundreds of thousands to millions of views and viral videos. And why it's so important to tap into your unique self and unique gifts. But I'm going to let you have the floor. I'll finish up that comedy part, and then, just share with the audience what your final advice would be for just conquering this thing we call YouTube and making some more people laugh.
Yeah. Well, I love that, Benji. And just to wrap up the formula and land the ship, as you mentioned, we've gone through the currency of comedy formula, briefly, yet hopefully in a way that you can take something from. The currency of comedy formula, again, a comedic principle, and we went through the pain principle and the truth principle, plus a comedic tool. We went through the contrast formula tool and the pattern interrupt tool, plus your idea. By the way, we embedded your ideas because I was asking you to insert those along the way. Like, what are 3 pains your audience has? What are 3 objections your audience might have with the pattern interrupt tool? So we've actually already embedded your idea. And then that equals comedic content. And on that side of the equal sign is the execution. So what I would invite everybody here who's remotely interested in inserting even 3% more comedy into your content is, let's be specific. What is one idea you have that you're willing to act on as a short hook in your next video that utilizes something that you learned today? In other words, a little cayenne spice into it. One idea. Now, if you want a second idea, if you're someone who's like, yeah, I'm all in, I really want to grow, here's the second challenge I'd have for you. What's one idea you have of a way you could end a video, even if it's a 5-second scene, using something that you've learned here? And even if you want to steal my idea, but use it in your own way, because I want your creativity here. Don't be funny my way, be funny your way. But even if it's just asking people to subscribe, turn on their notifications in a pattern interrupted way, a way they won't expect, because guess what? They'll remember, like, I've seen 1,000 people's YouTube videos. They're the only one that made it remotely funny asking me to subscribe. I'm going to remember that person just the same way you remember Adam Sandler in your favorite childhood movie, but you don't remember the 1,000 authors of the textbooks that were maybe informative but not memorable. So you become the Adam Sandler in someone's mind because you gave them a gift. You gave them a gift of a little dopamine hit because you released some endorphins as well. That was a little bit funny. Like, I didn't expect someone to like make a joke out of subscribing or turning on their notifications. So if you're up for that, one way you could add a little comedy to the beginning of the video, one way you could end the video with something you've learned here. And then lastly, just on the whole, the last time you got together with a group of friends, which I realize we're living in a time like, for some of us, that might have been a while ago. It might have been a couple months ago. But even at that, even if it was a couple months ago, if someone was monitoring you with a little counter, you're sitting at the restaurant table or the bar with, 4 or 5 friends, they would probably find you are making your friends laugh dozens of times throughout the night. Even if you say you're not a funny person, I guarantee when you are with friends, you're making them laugh dozens of times. So the goal here, that's you and that's me when we're in a natural state, when we're just being ourselves, and we feel free to be ourselves when we're around our friends. The goal here is to take a little bit of that natural state and allow that to come out in the context of a video that we might not be used to letting it come out. And that's why the currency of comedy formula, it's just a little bit of a walking stick to guide you, to help you do what you already are probably really good at.
Yeah, I love that. I was thinking about that as you were starting your talk about how funny people already are when they're with their friends. And so when you go back to that principle of understanding your audience, well, you understand your friends better than anybody, really, right? And you can relate to them. So you know their pain points. You're making them laugh without even thinking about it. And that's how easy speaking can be, like public speaking. If you just relate to them, like that's one of my speaking mentors says, the first thing you should do when you walk into the room getting ready to go on stage is think, how do I relate to all these people? And if you do that, and that's why I feel kind of good about my stand-up comedy joke session up there, right? Like the more you can connect, the more easily you can spill out those pain points. So I love this. This is, I think, one of the most unique interviews we've had on VI in a very, very long time that would add a lot more value that you don't hear a lot about, because again, the essence or the principle of this doesn't just apply to comedy specifically. It can apply to everything. The more value you can deliver if you understand what they're going through, the more clearly you can communicate a certain strategy for a certain audience because of your unique experience that you can relate to them on. So thank you so much, JP. And obviously you've been super successful. We're going to do a quick Q&A session after we end this. But I just wanted to hear, there's so much that a creator needs to do. And I've seen you go from one man band to working with people. Now your live show, you've got other people in your comedy acts. I love that you have writers helping you with content now. What's your last pieces of advice, generally speaking, for the audience about getting through challenges, overcoming fear, and what it takes to, get to where you've gone, which is 1 million subscribers?
Yeah, the number one principle that I've been operating with is amuse thyself. And that makes, even before I was getting great views on videos, it made it so when I made a video and put it out, it was worthwhile to make it, even if nobody watched it, because it amused me. It was essentially a gift I created for me. I did it in a way that I got joy out of it. I got fulfillment. And therefore, for the stretches where I'm getting like 7 views per video, it was okay because I was getting something out of it. So I think a mistake that we can make is root ourselves in the camp of just thinking, what does our audience want from us? Now, that's a great question. A really great question. And you're well ahead to know that. But if you're rooted there and only stay stuck there, we're missing out on what counts the most. What do I want to express? What amuses me? What would make me fulfilled, whether one person or 1 million people watches it? And to me, that's the secret, if you will, for being able to persevere through the droughts, getting 11 views per video, yeah, and the plateaus and subscribers, and that perseverance, it's able to be there if the videos are worth you doing, even if nobody watches them. Ironically, I think the videos are better if you make them in a way that amuse you, because it gets a little bit more of your authentic juice out of you, because you're coming from within, not without like, what do they want from me? You're pulling it from within the miracle of your own self. It's more authentic. It's got more of your soulful, heartful blood and guts on it. Therefore, the people that are a perfect match for who you are, they can better find you because you're expressing what amuses you, what tickles you, what interests you the most. And with that, I would just also add time and consistency.
Yes.
Relentless consistency are important. There are no overnight successes. Even if it appears someone's overnight success, we don't see the 20 years that went into their overnight success. So consistency. And Benji, one more thing. Man, yes. I'm opinionated today. I have to say this. A willingness to grow, change, and evolve yourself and your content. Man, how I started making content, I would hate doing that content now. Yet that content started to work for me. And then I started to do the comedy character, the ultra spiritual headband. But if I didn't let myself grow beyond it, I have to wear a headband in every video and just use that character. Man, I would hate doing videos. I would resent them. So what I've been blessed with is a willingness to grow, change, evolve, which means taking risks. So the last thing there is following your heart and allowing yourself to change how you do things. Because guess what? You can't be better if you're not willing to change.
Amuse thyself was the biggest takeaway I got from this. Thank you so much, JP. Like I said, we're going to get to the questions. If you're watching the replay of this, join the VI Members Club and you get all the replays as a member here. But just quickly want to give a shout out to your book. You guys, go check it out. We have the link down below. Ultra Spiritual JP Sears, How to Be Ultra Spiritual. Very funny book. By the way, I found this letter. I haven't read this in a while, and it was really heartwarming. So thank you again for sending me your book and writing that letter to me. Very funny channel. Tell everybody real quick a little bit about your channel, what they can expect, and then we'll get to the Q&A. And again, you guys pick up the book if you guys want a good laugh, because seriously, like the unique perspective in the way you wrote this is what I enjoyed the most. So JP, tell everybody where they can find you.
Yep, my YouTube channel is Awaken with JP. I put out 2 comedy videos per week on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and sometimes some bonus, just transformational life perspective videos sprinkled in there. And so Awaken with JP, if you find me at all amusing and not terribly offensive, you can subscribe to my channel. I'd be grateful to have you. And of course, so you can be shockingly annoyed each time I post a new video, you can hit the notification button. Or just if you're offended by me, then like that's where to avoid me the most.
For sure, for sure. Hey, you guys, if you got value out of this, hit that like button. Of course, subscribe for more interviews just like this. This is the Video Influencers Show. If you want to see more interviews with other influencers, click or tap the screen right here. If you want to see all the content on JP's channel, click or tap the screen right here. As always, we're helping build your influence, income, and impact with online videos. I will see you next Saturday for the VI show.